and veggies. I'll probably... I feel like I'm always forgetting to turn something on or unlock something. That's unlocked. Got extra books in there. Already checked the cow. For some reason I can't get the cow situated. It's feels like it's having a bad back day or something. The way it's turned that way. Like this box is unlocked. The fireplace is on. That poor chicken. Stuck out there.
You told me I was drinking, Hobbs.
Well, welcome.
Hello.
So when you're ready to begin, we walk through the mouth here, and please observe the signs posted. You gotta hear the warnings.
I see. The warnings, eh?
Yes, we have over 17 exhibits. The tour can take up to about an hour, but if you need to leave, just let us know. And you're always welcome to come back at any time and resume where you left off.
Great.
Ah, well, thank you.
Oddities inside. See them before it's too late. No children allowed unless they enjoy horrors, then welcome.
That's a cute couch that you got there. What's the name?
Ah, yeah. Oh, he got away.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's shy.
that's little Charlie. He's a little hunter. He likes his bugs, you know?
Oh, yes.
There you go, Charlie.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, there she goes.
That's Kit.
Kit. Kit the cat.
Oh, they're all so adorable. They're perfect.
Ah, indeed. All right.
Welcome, everyone. My sister is the Boggett Slime over there, and she will be starting your tours this evening.
Oh, hi there.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, what did you say your name was?
My name's Boggertha. Nice to meet you.
Boggett. Nice to meet you.
And this is Elias. He's the Employee of the Month.
Ah, well done, Elias. Well done.
Thank you.
Elias already has Employee of the Month.
Welcome.
Next month, he saved my life. He made sure the cannibals didn't take me away.
Oh, good.
Oh.
Cannibals, huh?
Good.
cannonballs, not cannibals. And
Oh, I see.
Oh.
Well,
yeah,
either way,
nobody
well
wants
done.
to chew on that old leathery thing.
Alright, if you're ready to begin, we'll begin.
Shall we?
Leave your preconceived notions of the normal world at this very threshold, and enter the world of the mysterious, the unusual, and the odd at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. By entering the museum, you agree management not responsible for any and all incidents therein, including but not limited to falling, tripping, plunging into graves or wells, and changing of hair color. Right this way.
Excellent.
Please step lively into the next chamber.
Our tour begins on your right to enter the museum. Blazing hot tropical Freeport, there stood a quiet specialty cheese shop located at the end of an alley. You're probably questioning, is it appropriate to locate a cheese shop in the melting heat? The answer, no. But not because of the heat. It was the feral cats. The cats had taken to begging at the cheese shop. As patrons were leaving, they would kindly drop a crumb or two, leading the cats to wait for the next patron. Eventually, the roof's support beams groaned and popped under the weight of waiting cats. The shop owner attempted to shoo them away at first, but then they realized the cats would not touch the crumbs of the most pungent cheeses. A patron remarked, "It is so hot today, the stone walls are almost sizzling." As the patron rounded the corner, the shop owner sprang into action. Gathering the most pungent cheeses, they pressed them against the blazing wall, where they melted, sticking them on. It really did work. To the cats, the stench of the cheese was so intense, they fled to the far side of the island. The shop owner rested well that evening, till suddenly the roof supports began to creak and groan. Running out into the dark to chase the cats off the bowing roof, the shop owner caught a glimpse of them through the moonlight. The cats turned their eyes and then their beaks toward the shop owner. It is then the shop owner realized the roof was covered not in cats, but in starving, hungry vultures.
Ugh.
I would invite you to sniff the walls to smell the pungent cheese, but there's several cats on your shoulders. They may not like the smell.
Cats don't like Jesus.
Aye, indeed.
You have to be
Yeah,
careful.
he's whining already.
Yeah, you don't want to fright them. Ugh. Alright, we'll go this way. We'll hurry. We'll get away from the Jesus.
Oh, I see it.
Alright.
Speak loudly, I'm up high. Wait your turn.
We're not to that one yet. In just a moment. First, we'll do this one here.
Aye.
The Great Northern Factory disaster took place on a particularly cold, dark, rainy evening. The main source of heat in the frozen north was a giant fireplace located beneath the smokestack here in front of us. The factory backed up to a large rock mountain, and the entrance of a great coal mine was built off of the factory down into the depths of the mountain. The top of the mountain was a known habitat for an assortment of different animals. The employees of the factory found a particularly large snake roasting on the coals late one afternoon, and they proceeded to prepare it for their dinner pot. It was not unusual for someone to bring whatever they had to share, although they could not determine who had brought the snake. They made a feast of the snake anyways and went back to work. As the evening grew colder and darker, they placed more and more coal onto the fire, and what no one realized is that the snake, deliciously roasting on the fire, had chased a rather plump sheep from the mountaintop. The snake and the sheep both fell over the side and landed on top of the smokestack. The snake fell further through to the coals below, but the sheep was wedged in the smokestack high above the factory. The toxic smoke had already weakened most of the workers to the point they could not get out by the time the panic began. All 3 workers were killed in this tragedy. The death toll was said to be near 458 lives, and it would remain the largest number of people killed by a single sheep for at least 2 more decades.
Aye, very, very nasty.
Oh, yes.
Wow. That's some sheep death.
Yeah, it is. Well, you gotta be careful, especially if you have any smokestacks or things like that. You Gotta watch for any kind of unusual things.
Aye, you never know what can lodge in those things, and that smoke will come right back at you, won't it?
Yeah, it will. I feel like it's backing up right now. I can almost see it.
Hmm.
Just hanging in the air a little bit.
Aye, almost like a fog.
Yeah, almost, but it's more like a smoke. Yeah, it's like we have unusual activities here sometimes. It could be part of that. It could be related.
Indeed.
Yeah, you never know. Before you here is a certified giraffe examination chair. It has been placed here as public service by the Giraffe Handlers Association. When a giraffe needs to be examined for multiple reasons, it's easier to back them from closer to their height. The doctor will climb up to the chair, and the giraffe will be brought closer for inspection purposes. What type of inspections, you ask? Well, one purpose is to see whether they have the giraffe-like teeth or the less common human-like teeth. But a far more common reason is to see if the ears have been laid with spider eggs again. Giraffe ears are known to be the perfect habitat for spider eggs. Laying their ears deep within the giraffe's warm ear hairs, they lie forgotten until the time comes for the hatching. If you have giraffes tame or wild near your home, be sure that they do not shake their heads frequently, as this is the first sign that the spider egg laying has occurred. If your giraffes have ears infested with spider eggs, the time will come that they will hatch, and the giraffe's head shaking will deposit hatchlings around and throughout your home.
Oh,
Oh God! Oh.
disgusting. We're gonna have to check out our giraffe.
Oh, you got a giraffe? Oh, no.
Oh no! Yeah. Oh no!
Look closely. Make sure they're not shaking their head frequently. That's the first sign.
He does. He does exactly that.
What do you mean? Well, you have to check the ear.
Oh no! There's spiders in
Right.
the house. There's spiders in that. Burning
You
it
just have
down.
to check
I'm
the
going
ear.
to burn it down.
Oh, no. Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
No spiders.
And if you're on an island that has spiders and you see one, they've already seen you and started running towards you. So, like a mile away.
Yeah, I don't like the spiders. Ugh.
Oh
Let's
no!
see.
Oh no!
What?
I looked back.
Don't look back.
Look back already. Look back.
Don't do it. It's
Too late.
Take it back. Take it back.
I can't take it back.
They will follow you home.
Good follow.
No.
No. No. Take it back. Okay, now. There we go. It's better now. You never did it. In a far-off kingdom, a rotten king reigned supreme. He was known to frequently decide he had been slighted and placed people in prison to be punished, or even worse. The king unexpectedly ordered a particularly complicated feast from his chef Arthur in the middle of the night. The chef and the kitchen staff worked frantically, tired as they were, to create a culinary masterpiece. The feast was a triumph, and the king later sent word to see if he may speak with the chef. Word arrived early the next morning. The king would be to the kitchens within the hour, and the kitchen staff readied themselves for his visit. The king arrived with his guards and quietly toured the kitchens as he thoroughly inspected many things. Nothing was said, and the king looked at the guards as he approached the exit and simply nodded. The king's guards proceeded to destroy the kitchen's pots and pans and kitchen tools, and the guards turned to the chef and said, "The king would like you to know he is displeased with last night's feast. You forgot to serve sea salt instead of salt with his meal." The chef was aghast. He knew he had served sea salt, as he had prepared it himself. He only said "aye" before he was off, and he was told he would be removed from the kitchen staff and be placed in prison to await further punishments. The king felt assured mistakes would no longer be made in his kitchen. As a test, a few weeks later, he had a new feast prepared for the opening of the knight's tournament. At the end of the tournament, a victorious knight stood remaining. The king was so unhappy he felt slighted again. His favorite knight did not win. So he rushed the knight with a dagger in his hand. The knight who did win flicked away the dagger and gave the king what was intended for the knight. The king now removed from life and power, the entrant made their way to the throne and were seated. The crowd dropped the facade of reverence for the old king and warmly cheered a new powerful leader. The guards, also shocked but no longer hiding their contempt for the rotten king, said, "All hail the new king," to which the entrant removed the helmet and said, "Queen." "All hail the new queen," said the guards. "What would you have us do, your majesty?" they asked. "Firstly bring me Arthur, the chef from the prisons." Arthur approached the new queen and he asked, "Daughter, what has happened? And are those my pots and pans you're wearing?" "There's time to explain it all, father," she said. "Sent them to me at the blacksmith shop to repair them. They did not know I was your daughter." She smiled pleasantly at her father as they waved toward the crowd over the tournament field and the cold, dead body of the former king. "You always said that your pots and pans would bring us good fortune, mother. You just didn't know how right you were."
Hi. All hail the queen.
"Oh, yes, indeed.
Is that the armor?
Yeah, that's the armor. Made out of pots and pans itself. It's hard to tell.
Those are the cheese graters. Huh.
Yeah, it's a little rough. You can take your forearm and just graze it across someone's face with a cheese grater. It's a lot of damage you wouldn't expect.
Hi.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh my.
They're not made to shred from the inside. So on the inside, they're not so bad after all.
As we proceed into the next room, please do not panic. Everything is under control. In case of a fire, we will exit you through the emergency exit.
All right.
Yes, right this way. It's only fire that looks like fire. It's fine. Unusual.
Oh, it's definitely hot.
On a roasting hot desert island, it rarely rained. House fires were happening frequently. And to help combat the fires, the residents used what they had to craft 2 fire carts. These carts, each pulled by the best rhinosaur the island could breed, were filled with water and pulled from location to location. Raspberry the monkey, found wandering an island used as a turtle habitat, was a pet of the head of the fire cart haulers. Out on one of their first patrols, they discovered something unusual. Raspberry had been trained to pull a cart. They decided that given his insistence that he be handed the reins, Raspberry be trained to drive the rhinosaur of cart number 2. This worked more than well. Raspberry was already a complete natural at cart handling and needed no further instruction at all. They even crafted a small seat just for him. This allowed the others to focus more on the fires themselves. Months passed with the carts racing to and from the fires, Raspberry excitedly guiding the cart all the way. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult morning of fighting a long series of fires, the bell rang out. It was time to ready the carts, but Raspberry could not be located. The head of the fire cart haulers went to Raspberry's room and found the monkey asleep in bed. Knowing the poor creature must be exhausted after the morning they had another member of the fire cart haulers pull the reins. They left without poor, tired Raspberry and headed off to the fire. Along the way, they spotted an unreported house fire, and they slowed cart number 2 to water it before catching up to cart 1. While spraying the house, the front door burst open, and a soaking wet Raspberry, extinguished torch in hand, emerged. Not believing that Raspberry could be both asleep and at the fire, his bed was checked. Neatly shaped and arranged was a pair of trousers, made to look like a sleeping Raspberry the monkey. Raspberry was wise at a great many things, cart hauling and deception being among his greatest talents. He was returned to the offices of the Turtle Sanctuary where he was found, so he could retire from his very busy life. The fire stopped overnight, and the fire cart haulers were quiet. One afternoon, a flare was fired, and a representative of a neighboring island had arrived wanting advice on fire carts. For they had been plagued with fires recently, so needed something, a small seat in front, because they had the oddest thing, a monkey who knew how to drive a cart. Yeah,
Little firebug, huh?
that's right. You gotta be careful.
Yeah, if you
Watch out
look,
for them.
Right.
if you look at its tail, it's already kind of got charcoal tip on it.
It sure does.
Like a
Cool
matchstick.
then. Sort of around the top of the head as well.
Aye.
That's right.
Bad monkey.
Wow.
No, this is not a tavern filled with delicious libations. In fact, if you had been here 50 years ago, you'd be dead. It wasn't unusual a long time ago to place additives into your spirits to give them an interesting afternote, be it bitter, sweet, or bittersweet. It was an unusually crowded evening the night before and would be again at a combination inn and tavern. The tavern keep was too busy to go for the ingredients for a top note to add to the drink for the next evening. The tavern keep's sibling was sent to pick up the rare, delicious, green, sweet ingredient, Magistine. The herbologist, however, was also out, and in their stead, their apprentice was working. The assistant herbologist mistook the requested Magistine for the common pest remover maggot stem, nearly identical in both appearance and flavor, coupled with the very unfortunate similarity in their names. The switch was made. The maggot stem was delivered to the tavern and used to give the libations a sweetness. As is custom with a spirit house attached to overnight accommodations, the drinks poured heavily and quickly. The hallucinations began an hour into the evening, and the vomiting began shortly thereafter. Ingestion of maggot stem is said to produce hallucinations such as liquid running down the walls, inanimate objects breathing, skies filled with flying animals, and the mistaking of human form for animal. Chaos of the visions, coupled with the vomiting, began a putrid battle within the tavern, where all fought for their lives. Any who made it outside were driven back in by the visions they saw in the sky. Those victors who survived the vomitous battle were said to have lain unconscious on these very floorboards until their hearts slowed to death.
Wow. An awful way to go.
That was terrible. Be careful back there. Don't fall into the next exhibit.
You said that was. So they put Magistine in the drinks to make them taste better, or like it was.
Yeah, it was some sort of unusual an herbal additive called Magistine. I haven't run across it myself ever before, but we did hear about it.
Well that's very interesting. But
Yeah, the mistake was that they used the maggot stem, which
maggot
is,
stem.
yeah, unfortunately that's some sort of pest remover, which does not suit the human innards very well at all.
Yes. Well, interesting. Both of those things. You know, we could use a good pesticide. So I think I may investigate see if I can read anything about how to make those.
Yeah, you're good with the posts. Just leave them out of the alcohol.
Well, you know, I mean, you never know. If I can make the Magistine and add it to the drinks, you know, like guys, make it taste better.
Well, yeah.
We'll see. I mean, you know.
Whoa, look out behind.
You'll direct your attention into this display.
That doesn't look good.
If you've been to a hot,
The
humid,
carpet is moist.
tropical Freeport, you know all too well the heat can be unrelenting. Two elderly brothers were looking for their lost goat near their home, and they stumbled upon something, a very large abandoned well. The well had run low on water, but the inside had a beautiful pool at the bottom. The brothers knelt beside the well lid, and when they opened it, they could feel the cool, refreshing air blow past them. They thought about and discussed the well the remainder of the day and night. They awoke the next day with a plan. they would put a ladder down the well and see what was inside. They slipped from the final ladder rung into the cool, dark water and enjoyed the most luxuriously pleasant soak in neck-high, perfectly chilled water. The water drained a bit more over time, however. Now, instead of floating, they had to kneel or sit on the bottom of the well. This did not suit the aged frames very well, and they began to talk of a new plan. It was decided to make the well a bit more comfortable, so they moved some furniture inside, using ropes and the goat, who was finally found in time, to lower some things down from the hatch above. This would be their final plan. Their friend, who knew of the well and having not seen the brothers for quite some time, began to worry and look for them. When they approached the well, they could already tell something was wrong. The scent of mold and mildew and end of life met their friend before the well. For you see, as they were soaking in the cool, damp richness of the well, their furniture was also. The introduction of the furniture began a growth of mold and mildew and rot that first tainted the well and then outright poisoned it. As the furniture was mildewing and molding from the outside, the cool, damp, dark back of the chairs was growing a deadly fungus. Before that fungus was discovered, it had already started to emit toxic spores, which filled the well and the lungs of the two elderly brothers.
Yeah, those spores will, they will do some nasty stuff to the, to your body, from what I understand. I don't understand a lot about it, but, nasty.
Now, if you were to find a well yourself, don't lower your furniture down in there. It's not healthy for the whole environment.
Aye, we left some carpets out, and it had kind of that same effect, you know?
No. Yeah, they get very putrid when they've been out in the rain.
Aye.
They're
Could
still.
could I hold things up? My wife, I left her on the ship. Would it be okay if I ran over there to check to see if she's awake?
Sure, that's
Rude.
fine.
I'm part of
me,
the
guys.
group, yeah, and I just woke up and I'm an idiot.
Follow me.
Ah, I knew I heard that voice.
Hello. Hello, dear.
Hello,
Hi.
love. There you
I'm
are.
sorry. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. It's
I
just
was
fine,
sick.
huh? We just
Some
started not too long
beverages
ago, so.
and some snack items available.
Oh, you're so
heck.
sweet.
Ah, come on
dear.
in, hon.
Oh, I was so excited about
this
coming
way.
to the museum. Oh,
Would you like some popcorn while you look through the exhibits?
No, I think I'm good. I might just change into something cooler.
Aye.
Did we need to round the first exhibits again?
Oh, up to Miss Virginia if she'd like to see those. I don't mind. I don't have anywhere to be today.
Would you like to round the first exhibits one more time?
Would you like to see them again, love? It's only a couple of them.
Okay, as long as you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I
I've
don't
got all
mind.
day.
I'm just happy to be here.
Oh, welcome.
Shall we?
Is it okay with you, Hobbs?
That's fine. We're here.
At a blazing hot tropical freeport, there stood a quiet specialty cheese shop at the end of an alley. You are probably questioning, is it appropriate to let a cheese shop in the melting heat? The answer, no. Not because of the heat, however. It was the feral cats. The cats had taken to begging at the cheese shop. As patrons were leaving, they would kindly drop a crumb or two
I'm
of
always
cheese,
afraid I'm gonna have a whole
leaving
stack
cats
of
to wait for the next
lumber in
patron.
there.
Eventually, the roof
And it
support
turns into
beams
coal.
groaned and popped under the weight of multiple waiting cats. The shop owner attempted to shoo them away at first, but then realized The cats would not touch the crumbs of the most pungent cheeses. A patron remarked, "It is so hot today, the stone walls are almost sizzling." As the patron rounded the corner, the shop owner sprang into action and, gathering the most pungent cheeses, pressed them against the blazing hot stones, where they melted, sticking them on. It really did work. To the cats, the stench of the cheese was so...
The cats definitely doesn't like the cheese chop.
Probably not.
The cheese is too pungent.
It's kind of stinky.
vultures. Yes, that's right.
What?
Aye.
Yeah, we tried to hurry away. We had cats on the tour unexpectedly. We were afraid they might smell the pungent cheese from the wall.
Yes, we're gonna have to.
The Great Northern Factory disaster took place on a particularly cold, dark, rainy evening. The main source of the heat in the frozen north was a giant fireplace, located beneath the smokestack here above us. The factory backed up to a large rock mountain, and the entrance of a great coal mine was built off of the factory down into the depths of the mountain. The top of the mountain was a known habitat for an assortment of a variety of animals. The employees of the factory found a particularly large snake roasting on the coals late one afternoon and proceeded to prepare it for the dinner pot. It was not unusual for someone to bring whatever they may have, although they could not determine who brought the snake. They made a feast anyhow and went back to work. As the evening continued to grow colder and darker, they placed more and more coal onto the fire. What no one realized is the snake, deliciously roasting on the fire, had chased a rather plump sheep from the mountaintop. The snake and the sheep both fell over the edge. The snake plunged further down onto the roasting hot coals too, but the sheep was wedged in the smokestack high above the factory. The toxin had already weakened most of the workers to the point they could no longer get out. By the time the panic began, all but 3 workers were killed in the tragedy. The death toll was said to be near 458 lives. It would remain the largest number of people killed by a single sheep for at least 2 more days.
Oh,
Boggert, I'm starting to panic. I thought there was one sheep, but for some reason I'm seeing doubles.
Seeing 2 sheep up there
Aye.
now?
Yeah, this gentleman gave me some drink, and somehow I'm seeing doubles.
I don't see 2, I only see 1. You have to be careful. Don't get any other drinks with the unusual additives. Can make you very...
spiders. Spiders before my bath.
Alright, we'll get to this one. Before you, here's a certified giraffe examination chair. It's been placed here as a public service by the Giraffe Handlers Association. When a giraffe needs to be examined for multiple reasons, it's much easier to inspect that giraffe from closer to their height. The doctor will climb up the chair, and the giraffe will be brought closer for inspection purposes. What type of inspection, you may ask? One purpose is to see if they have giraffe-like teeth, or the less common human-like teeth, of course. But a far more common reason is to see if the ears have been laid with spider eggs again, as giraffe ears are known to be the perfect habitat for spider eggs. Laying their eggs deep within the giraffe's warm ear hairs, they lie forgotten. The time eventually comes for the hatching. If you have giraffes, tame or wild, near your home, be sure that they do not shake their head frequently. This is the first sign spider egg laying may have occurred. If your giraffe's ears are infested with spider eggs, the time will come that they will hatch, and then the giraffe's head shaking will deposit new hatchlings around and throughout your home.
Oh God. Oh God.
Oh god, I know.
Aye.
We gotta.
As long as you don't have a giraffe, you're
Oh,
fine.
we have a giraffe.
We have
Yeah.
one.
We just shot
Have
him.
a giraffe.
And he shakes
Oh,
his
nobody
head.
knows.
It's just
Nobody
a
knows why we got a giraffe.
Oh, just check the ears. Be sure to look in the canals way down low. Make sure there's nothing wound around in the hairs. You can tell there's a little web and a little sac in there filled with eggs. Just have to look
Sounds-
closely.
Sounds like a tamer's job. It's not my job.
Aye.
We're gonna have to get one of these inspected.
Indeed.
The giraffe could always have an unfortunate incident. Look at this.
Yeah, in a far-off kingdom, a rotten king reigned supreme. He was known to frequently decide he'd been slighted and place people in prison to be punished, or worse. The king unexpectedly ordered a particularly complicated feast from the chef Arthur in the middle of the night. The chef and the kitchen staff worked frantically, as tired as they were in the middle of the night, to create a culinary masterpiece. The feast was a triumph, and the king later sent word to see if he may speak with the chef. Word arrived early in the morning. The king would be to the kitchens within the hour, and the staff readied themselves for a visit. The king arrived with his guards and quietly toured the kitchens as he thoroughly inspected many things. Nothing was said, and the king looked at his guards as he approached the exit and nodded. The king's guards proceeded to destroy the kitchen's pots and pans and the kitchen tools. The guards turned to the chef and said, "The king would like you to know he's displeased with last night's feast. You forgot to serve sea salt instead of salt with his meal." The chef was aghast. He knew he had served sea salt. He had prepared it himself. He only said "aye" before he was cut off and told he was to be removed from the king's staff and to be placed in prison to await punishment or worse. He felt assured that mistakes would no longer be made in his kitchen. Now, a few weeks later, he had a new feast prepared for the opening of the night's tournament. At the end of that tournament, a victorious knight stood remaining. The king was so unhappy and felt slighted again that his favorite knight did not win, that he rushed the knight with a dagger in his hand. The knight flicked away the dagger and gave the king what was intended for fight. The king now removed from life and power. The entrant made their way to the throne and were seated. The shocked crowd dropped the facade of reverence for the old king and warmly cheered the powerful leader. The guards, also shocked, but no longer hiding their contempt for the old rotten king, said, "All hail the new king." To which the entrant removed their helmet and said, "Queen." "All hail the new queen," said the guards. "What would you have us do, your majesty?" they asked. "Firstly, bring me Arthur, the chef from the prisons." Arthur approached the new queen and asked, "Daughter, what has happened? And are those my pots and pans you're wearing?" "It's time to explain it all, father," she said. "They sent them to me at the blacksmith shop for repairs. They did not know I was your daughter." She smiled pleasantly at her father as they waved toward the crowd over the tournament field and the cold, dead body of the former king. "You always said that your pots and pans would bring us good fortune, father. You just didn't know how right you were."
Gosh.
Aye. Long live the queen.
Yes.
That's the actual armor, Miss Virginia.
"Don't be wary of the fire above. It's only fire that looks like fire. There's nothing unusual involved."
In case of an emergency, we will direct you to the nearest fire exit.
Well,
Thank you.
on a roasting hot desert island, it rarely rained. House fires happened frequently. To help combat the fires, the residents used what they had to craft 2 fire carts. These carts, each pulled by the best rhinosaur the island could breed, were filled with water and pulled from location to location. Raspberry, the monkey, found wandering an island used as a turtle habitat, was the pet of the head of the fire cart haulers. Out on one of their first patrols, they discovered something unusual about Raspberry. He had been trained to pull a cart. They decided that given his constant insistence he be handed the reins, Raspberry be trained to drive the rhinosaur of cart number 2. This worked more than well. Raspberry was already a natural at cart handling, in fact, needing no instruction at all. They even crafted a small seat just for him. This allowed the others to focus more on the fires, and months passed with the carts racing to and from the fires, Raspberry excitedly guiding carts all the way. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult morning of fighting a long series of fires, the bell rang again. It was time to ready the carts, and Raspberry could not be located. The head of the fire cart haulers went to Raspberry's room and found the monkey asleep in bed. Knowing the poor creature must be exhausted after the morning they had had, they had another member of the fire cart haulers pull the reins instead. They left without poor tired Raspberry and headed off to the fire. Along the way, they spotted an unreported house fire and slowed cart number 2 to water it before catching back up to cart number 1. While spraying the house, the front door burst open and a soaking wet Raspberry, extinguished torch in hand, emerged. Not believing that Raspberry could be both asleep and at the scene of the fire, his bed was checked. Neatly shaped and arranged was a pair of trousers made to look like a sleeping Raspberry the monkey. Raspberry was wise at a great many things, cart hauling and deception being among his greatest talents. He was returned to the offices of the Turtle Sanctuary where he was found, so he could retire from his very busy life. The fire stopped overnight, and the fire cart haulers were quiet until afternoon. A flare was fired, and a representative of a neighboring island had arrived. They wanted advice on fire carts, for they had also been plagued with fires recently. And they needed a small seat in the front, as they had the oddest thing, a monkey who knew how to drive a cart. Oh, yes.
Hi, bad monkey.
No, this was not a tavern filled with delicious libations. In fact, if you had been here 50 years ago, you would be dead. It wasn't unusual a long time ago to place additives into your spirits to give them an interesting afternote, be it bitter, sweet, or bittersweet. It was an unusually crowded evening the night before, and would be again at a combination inn and tavern. The tavern keep was too busy to go for the ingredients for a top note to add to the drink for the next evening, and the tavern keep's sibling was sent to pick up a rare, delicious, green, sweet ingredient, Magistine. The herbologist, however, was also out, and in their stead their apprentice was working. The assistant herbologist mistook the Magistine for the more common pest remover, Maggot Stem. Nearly identical in both appearance and flavor, coupled with the unfortunate similarity in name, the switch was made. The Maggot Stem was delivered to the tavern and used to give the tavern's libations a smooth sweetness. As is custom with a spirit house attached to overnight accommodations, the drinks poured heavily and quickly. The hallucinations began an hour. Any who made it outside were driven back in by the strange visions in the sky, and those victors who did survive the vomitous battle were said to have then lain unconscious on these very floorboards until their hearts slowed to death.
Hi, look how they're green.
Yeah, the stain. We tried to get the staining out, but it's not capable of coming out now.
Well, the smell's gone.
Yes,
Hi.
thankfully.
Yeah. My goodness. What a
Watch out.
tale to tell.
All
Be
right,
careful
and then,
behind you, love.
yes, across from you here.
Oh,
Our next exhibit. If you've been to a hot, humid tropical island, you know all too well the heat can be unrelenting. Two elderly brothers were looking for their lost goat near their home, and they stumbled on something, a very large abandoned well. The well had run low of water, but the inside had a beautiful pool at the bottom. The brothers knelt beside the well, and when they opened it, they could feel the They would put a ladder down the well and see what was inside. They slipped from the final ladder rung into the cool, dark water and enjoyed the most luxuriously pleasant soak in neck-high, perfectly chilled water. The water drained a bit more over time, and now, instead of floating, they had to kneel or sit on the bottom of the well. This did not suit the aging frames very well. They began to talk of a new plan. It was decided to make the well more comfortable, so they moved some furniture down inside using ropes and the goat, who was finally found in time, to lower some things from the hatch above. This would be their final plan. Their friend, who knew of the well and having not seen the brothers for quite some time, began to worry and look for them. When they approached the well, they could already tell something was wrong. The scent of mold and mildew and end of life met their friend before the well. For you see, as they were soaking in the cool, damp richness of the well, so was their furniture. The introduction of the furniture began a growth of mold and mildew and rot that first tainted the well and then outright poisoned it. As the furniture was slowly mildewing and molding from the outside, the cool, damp, dark back of the chairs was growing a deadly fungus. Before that fungus was discovered, it had already begun to emit toxic spores which filled the well and the lungs of the two elderly brothers.
That's what I said about the carpets.
Yep, exactly the
That's
same
what.
thing.
That's what's.
Yep.
Carpets get so horrendously smelly. They get wet and allowed to sit for too long. Far beneath a beautiful country estate lies a strange fate for those unfortunate enough to have encountered mad, noble women. They had a secret which would have run the blood cold of those in the aristocratic circles they kept themselves in. The mad women had developed an unusual diet preference: human toenails. Half-hearted soldier, drunken sailor, or sea witch preyed upon all of them. They went into the dark nights to round up victims. They would wait outside tavern and dance hall for those inebriated enough not to put up a fight. A bag over the head, about 6 spins around, was enough to knock even the stoutest person conscious when they had been plied with enough drink. They could be locked into the chambers on each side of me here, their feet scrubbed, cleaned, and their toenails trimmed, so as not to waste an ounce of the resource. I know what you're all wondering. Why did they not just pull them out at the root? After all, that's the sensible thing to do. Well, the sisters weren't monsters, you see. They were just oddly hungry. Each victim awakened, dumped on the outskirts of a town, shoeless, sockless, pants rolled to the knee, but their feet were beautifully scrubbed and the toenails perfectly trimmed. The sisters were caught. They eventually mistook a pair of sleepy officers for inebriated and were overcome by them. Threatening with having their toenails pulled out at the root, it is the sensible thing to do. They confessed to the entire ruse. Afterward, they fell from grace and out of high society. They took on new identities where they began to work in a wash house, trimming the nails of those who came to bathe, thereby enabling them to continue to feed their very unusual hunger.
Oh.
Yeah, we're sorry. We tell all the tales here that we come across, even if they don't exactly fit the palace, but there's tough ones in here. All right. I knew beautiful island Freeport was too close to a deep-water ocean trench. The frequent ship traffic to and from the island had angered the residents of the deep waters. Many different creatures made their way from the depths to investigate the new disturbance. Swirling waters mixed new warm water down into the formerly cool trench and introduced new detritus down into the depths. Mermaids from the trench seemed to grow much angrier, becoming a constant menacing presence throughout the waters. To teach the citizens defensive tactics to protect themselves against the mermaids, as well as to ensure people would not fear nearing the very profitable Freeport. The Freeport opened a training institute just off the shore. Seen before you here is the standard issue training form, as well as a specialized mermaid training form developed at the institute. Normally housed in deeper water, was used to teach citizens techniques to avoid or defend against angry mermaids. The mermaids seemed to realize something was occurring at Freeport and really began to increase their violence. Eventually, they began to investigate the institute itself, and they made their way to the shoreside where the training forms were stationed. Instead of damaging the training forms, The mermaids seemed to study them, possibly believing them to be figures in reverence of themselves. It is believed they took this as a sign the mermaid was a respected neighbor, and it led them to stop their attacks completely. Unintentionally, these forms did work to protect the citizens. No one ever trained to defend themselves had to, and the mermaid forms were left in the water as a sign of continued respect. Luckily for the Freeport, the mermaids had not witnessed the carnage used against these forms.
Oh,
You're
wow.
welcome to look a little closer. See the eyelashes built into the head part.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Wow.
Beautiful eyes like a mermaid. You would almost think you
Ah.
were looking directly at an actual mermaid.
Well-
Indeed. So,
It's very pretty.
ah.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh.
Ah!
A skilled blacksmith made a fortune on board a ship repairing broken old wood stoves in a frozen polar region. A fortune he intended to keep. Looking around his ship one day, he realized he had a dozen wood stoves that no one had claimed after they were repaired, needing to both remove the extra weight from the ship and find a more suitable place to keep his treasure that he had required safe. He left the polar regions and went to his home on a warm elephant island. He owned a small piece of the island that included a swamp. The swamp was home to many horrendous beasts, the least of which were an endless amount of spiders. He knew the location for a hideaway for his treasure was well hidden inside the cavern on the edge of the swamp. You would not see it unless you were already falling into it. Covered in vines and growth, it was the perfect place, except it was home to thousands of fast spiders. But he knew spiders feared one thing above all others, a larger, faster spider. To attempt to stop them from living in the cavern, as well as to add an additional shock should any unfortunate soul stumble into the caverns, he carted the old, forgotten wood stoves down into the darkened mouth of the cavern to create this monstrosity here before you. Welding those stoves together and carving a stone plinth in the cavern's rocks, he successfully created a spider to frighten all spiders, and the others fled in fear, leaving him in freedom now to place his treasure deep in the delightfully spider-free cavern. He went back to making more and more treasure and readied himself for a return. Upon his return, he's looking forward to the spiderless cavern after having fought his way through them in their swamps. He arrived at the cavern and found it filled, not with spiders, but with elephants, bursting at the seams with elephants. They chased him from the entrance all the way back to his ship over and over again. For you see, the only thing that kept the elephants out of the cavern were the spiders.
Oh.
And what lured them deep into the caverns was the new multiple-armed scratching post that someone had put for them to scratch themselves.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, we have
There's
the
a,
elephants here as well. We try not to let them know that there's a wonderful multi-armed scratcher in here for them.
we'll learn from that.
Anybody need popcorn? This is a spot in the tour if you need popcorn or refreshments.
Yum.
And the
This is
tour will-
lovely. Such an exciting tour. And
Oh,
popcorn,
thank you.
too.
Haunted.
It's wonderful.
Here is what was once a beautiful, marvelous circus organ. The organ was a modern wonder. It needed no one to play it, and in fact, it didn't even have keys. It produced sound through steam. With a series of reused water and stovepipes, it could play the most beautiful melodies. It was pulled in 3 carts behind 3 elephants as the circus parade arrived in the town. Playing all the while, it let the residents know the circus was arriving. The circus fell into ruin after the death of the ringmaster and owner. The ringmaster was thrown higher than the high wire act one evening by a pair of elephants looking to escape circus life. The audience, seeing that tragedy unfold, sent out warnings to all they knew. Avoid the circus at risk of peril. The organ was purchased at an auction of items from the circus by a group of ne'er-do-wells with a plan. They would travel the reassembled pipe organ from port to port on board their ship, playing friendly melodies for tips throughout the day. They would quieten as the shops closed and the people headed to their homes. Then in the late hours of the evening, they would stoke the fires of the steam heater until they were raging. The beautiful music produced with gentle steam pressure became a howling, screeching, clangorous noise under the raging fire. This caused residents to flee their homes in terror, and horses and animals to batter their stalls, not knowing what beast was capable of such horrendous noise. The ne'er-do-wells would slow the fires eventually, so they could do this: offer a proclamation. The fires would be stoked repeatedly, unless the township was able to come up with a predetermined fee to pay the ne'er-do-wells to leave their port in peace. The ne'er-do-wells landed in another port as usual. One afternoon, they played their beautiful music, the shops closed, the residents began to leave, and they waited. And they went to the box on the top of the ship to get the wood for the fires. Instead of the residents being quietly asleep, however, the entire town was standing row after row, lining the edge of the harbor, staring directly at their vessel. The water was already flowing into the ship by the time the ne'er-do-wells could react. You see, their residents had been made aware of an approaching ship 2 days prior and had already formed a plan of their very own. The pipe organ was dismantled and trod upon, resulting in the warped and discolored remaining pipes you see before you here today.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
look at that.
Tour continues in the next chamber. Be careful not to fall into the grave.
The grave. Oh.
Below us here lies the coffin of the final husband.
Oh no.
Oh, there's always
Bob,
one.
you pushed me in there. I know you did.
Now
There's
you're
always one.
As always, well, there's things that happen here in this museum. You never know what might occur.
Yeah.
Oh. Below us here lies the coffin of the final husband of the widow of Shallow Creek. She was called the widow because she had buried 12 husbands, 11 of whom were deceased. She begged for help from the townspeople. She said she was being haunted by the vengeful ghost of her most recent husband. The widows of the town vowed to help her sleep and formed a group who would sit in the home of the widow while she tried to rest. It was a quick rotation. But you see, they all eventually stared straight again into the eyes of the man they used to know. Each night when someone sat with her, just before the sky began to lighten, there was a shuffling behind them. One after another, widows fled the still darkened, creaking home. Once that group was exhausted, the widows pleaded to the town for help. The young single men were sent next. They were thought to be less prone to fright. It was the same story, however. They all ran for their lives after gazing into the eyes of the dead man. The oldest woman in town, thought far too frail last. May I go next? She sat slumped forward, next to the warm fire in a chair, her eyes closed, her back to the room, when the ghost appeared. His long bony fingers reaching and clawing slid up over the back of the chair and around the woman's frail, thin neck. From outside the home, a blood-curdling scream that chased wolves back to their dens was cut short. The townsfolk, worried for the frail lady but humoring her, had kept their ears open in case she called. A number of them reached the steps at the same time, and they clambered to the front door and flung it open. Standing tall over two bodies was the frail old woman.
Oh.
What no one realized is that the oldest woman in town was the wisest, unable to sleep very well in the cold nights due to her aging bones. She slept during the warmer daylight hours, and every night she would watch the supposedly dead husband of the widow of Shallow Creek creep through house after house in town. For you see, as people went to sit with the terrified widow, her very much alive husband was going to the towns to steal from their homes. He would arrive late to scare the people out of his house and show what he had stolen to his wife. The oldest woman, however, went prepared with a rolling pin in her sleeve to expose the ruse of the widow of Shallow Creek.
Oh.
Boy,
Smart
that's
lady.
Crazy.
Evil.
In a remote cabin, something unusual happened. The owner of the cabin grew older and more tired, and as the years were catching up to him, he thought he needed a way to bring life back to his life. He found a place where he could, for a price, order a tincture. He waited a moment, then he flung open the door and retrieved the package, bound in hides and tied to a large stone. He thought the bottle was unusually shiny, until he realized a portion of the shine was coming from inside the bottle. He swirled the bottle through his fingers and stared at the cork topper. He thought of his plan and he glanced up at the portrait of his loved one. He realized then, this one may hold more than he bargained for. What if it turned back his aging? What if it stopped him from aging at all? Could he decide when he was through with the powerful elixir? He sighed and he realized, now that he held the power in his hand, what he missed was not his youth. It was what was part of his youth, and that was not going to come back. Angry mostly at himself, he flung the bottle into the fireplace. It shattered, coating the back where the fireplace grew and changed and roared like a tiger and spit flames across the room, eventually settling back into a normal fireplace once again. He wondered what magic was in that tincture, and he vowed to himself he would never again try to recapture that which is meant to be left in the past.
Aye.
Well, that's wise.
A lesson to be learned.
Packed cargo freighter, named the Sea Slicer, sailed through a fog-shrouded sea. It lurched high and low through the waters, crates groaning sides. On board amongst the crew stood a mere deckhand. As the ship passed through a shimmer, a mysterious event occurred. Every person, in fact every creature everywhere, disappeared, except for the deckhand. Calling out for anyone else, he realized he was totally alone. In their crates, their contents, and the ship itself, the deckhand began to panic. He could not understand the workings of the ship enough to get it under control, and without a crew to pull the sails and manage the wheel, it seemed like a task that he could not accomplish. "Hello? Hello? Help!" he pleaded, and his plea was heard by the only other thing that inhabited the world. The figure stood before him on the other side of the cabin door, but he could immediately tell this figure was not human. It had no facial features, and in fact it had no features at all. The ship careened out of control, and just the figure reached through the doorway. The ship crashed on the shore of a desolate island. The deckhand was thrown overboard into the water just by the shore. While running from the ship and the figure, the deckhand began to realize he wasn't breathing normally. With every breath he took, it grew shallower and shallower. The further he made it from the figure, the less he could breathe. The world grew darker and darker until he finally went unconscious. The deckhand awakened and found himself all the way back where his voyage began. But the crew, the ship, and the cargo were never seen again. They say the shimmer figure waits just over the shimmer for its next crew. Will you be the only one it spares, or will you never be seen again?
Oh my god. Is this real?
Oh, yes. We've heard other stories about going through the shimmer and not seeing one of you, but seeing two of you.
Yes, it seems like the figure is interested in duplicating people now. We've also heard that it steals youth from one person and gifts it to another person.
Right.
Working in mystery. We're not sure what the reasoning is behind it. We also hear that it is very hungry, and it hungers for shoulder pets and animals on board your ship who may mysteriously disappear after you've crossed a ship.
I have heard that one, yes.
Right.
Yes. Oh gosh.
Yes. But yes, we have heard of a crew crossed the shimmer, and when they arrived on the other side, there was another ship and another crew that looked just like them. They were sleeping, and this crew was left to wonder which crew now was the right crew.
Aye.
I think that
wow.
the figure must be duplicating people in order to create more people on the other side of the shimmer, but not sure what it's readying itself for.
Very, very creepy. We've lost several monkeys, haven't we?
No,
Monkey.
be very careful. In a reboot, deep in a prison lie a cold, dark, windowless cell. A guard routinely traversed the corridors. One prisoner, who they had not planned on having and did not know the history of, was a magician, trained in the art of lock-picking. Picking the lock came easily, but getting out of the area was more difficult. The cell was at the end of a U-shaped corridor. The prisoner had nothing but time as they thawed and sat in waiting. Day in, day out, they watched the guards, and they finally had a plan. The guards always took the same pathway through the loop, and they realized they could never go towards the guards. But if they could get out ahead of the guards, they may just make it out ahead of them. One problem, though, their bed would surely be found empty, as they were on their way to the exit and freedom, raising the alarm bell.
Oh.
Oh. Wow.
In an effort to fool the guards, they began to put away slices of bread and sausages in their pillowcase. This plan was nearly ruined twice on unplanned laundry days. They had to gorge themselves on the food they had stashed, but finally, a dark moonless night came, and it was dark enough for the plan to work. They neatly arranged the old bits of breads and sausages and formed what appeared to be a vague figure, just enough so the guards would see a body sleeping in the bed and give them time to slip away. And went smoothly, and the prisoner was able to escape. The guards eventually discovered the ruse, and knowing how the head of the guards would react to their being fooled, and knowing what they now had to do to hide the evidence, they sat down for a most unwanted feast.
Now you're welcome to take a closer look.
Yes, you can take a look at the sausages and bread. They've just arranged to look like some.
And the tour continues here at the dentist's.
Here before us is the interior of the city office of the butcher of Butterfly Lane, as he was later known. shown on the table in front of you are the actual tools that he used. Fancying himself a dentist, he convinced the local populace he was legitimate. Using a plant known for special properties, he was able to cause patients to leave their bodies while tied to the bed here before you. He would remove all of the teeth of the victim, promising only that he would repair their teeth. It was so much easier to convince them afterward that all their teeth had gone bad and therefore none of the repair work, which he could not do, need be performed. Human teeth were a prized form of keratinoid, similar to bone, but with a much sturdier structure if refined properly. The fraudulent dentist would leave his office very early in the day, and that was thought unusual by the community, considering how many of them were desperately waiting for dental work. He had a nefarious plan to always leave early. He was tainting the town's water supply with ground-up squid innards. The innards in the water still contained the powerful acids that the squid used to break down sharp shells they ingest in their feeding cycle, and even once ground up and dispersed through the town's water supply, there was still enough acid quality of the innards to weaken the teeth of the city dwellers to the point they needed dental work and supply the dentist with the teeth he so needed.
Oh my.
Wow.
It's chilling.
Your teeth stay here.
I have a dream like that.
I'm a wizard, but how did they make that move like that?
Oh, have you not seen the Clockworks? Oh, we'll take a further look at the Clockworks further on in our tour today.
Aye.
Right this way. Be sure to stand back. The story of this printing press begins in the polar north. The freighter Frozen Sails was used to delivering supplies to a far-flung polar research base where the Frozen Institute was located. On the slippery top deck of Frozen Sails, a crew member called out eerily, "Who's there?" when they heard voices through the fog crying. The calling out stopped the other crew in their tracks. Soon enough, they could hear it too, enchanting voices. But they were not calling out in sorrow. They were calling out in song. By the time anyone could raise the alarm, no one wanted to any longer. Below decks, a sleeping crew member who would be on a late shift was awakened, slid out of bed across the sleeping quarters. Just as the crew member made it halfway to the topside, the sails sitting untended whirled and snapped violently through the winds. The heeling of the ship was so intense, the crew members who were not already overboard were dumped overboard. The crew member was awestruck with horror. The crew member had plugged their ears with rolled up cotton to stop the loud crew from waking them, and they were now oblivious to the sounds coming from the ocean, but they knew in an instant what was happening. They were under the attack of the sirens' song. The masts, weakened by the whirling and snapping, groaned and gave way. They crashed down through the decks below, severely damaging the hull of the ship. The crew member climbed into a dinghy, lowered it, and watched as their crewmates nearby sickeningly dove underwater and disappeared into the now still blue abyss. The survivor rowed and rowed for hours in the frozen waters until they reached land. They staggered onto the shores, called out, and collapsed. They had made it to the island of the Frozen Institute, and they would very soon be found. The same cannot be said for the Frozen Sails and her other crew, who drifted down into the frozen, darkened depths. The survivor decided to print a book to tell the tale of that horrendous day, and they used the boards, the dinghy they survived in, to make this printing press behind me. It is said the sea sirens placed a curse on that dinghy because they did not get the chance to clear the ocean that night. The now cursed printing press behind me can at times call out to those nearby, asking them to climb into its gnashing jaws. It is rumored that this printing press eventually devoured the crew member who created it, and we wonder, now is it satisfied, or is it just waiting to strike again?
I don't want to find out.
All right, if you're not too concerned, I'll introduce you to the Clockworks over here if you haven't seen one before.
Aye.
It's some sort of mechanical device. They say, oh, it's only used for display purposes. But it appears to be much more to this device than what we've been led to believe.
Really?
Oh,
Oh.
It has the ability to move. I don't know if you can hear, but it has an unusual ability to make sound as well. Producing sound. They say, oh no, that's just squeaking hinges. No, we don't believe that to be the truth. It does not sound like squeaking hinges.
We have
Yes,
spotted
I
one.
suspected them.
We have spotted one just north of the Freeport, down in B6. It's in the
Yes.
dark, cold woods.
Yes.
Well, I suspected her one night. I got up after Spencer had put one beside the fire, and I got up. Nobody was around, and when I looked at it, it moved by itself.
We've heard that. We've
Same
heard it
happened to
can,
me.
we heard it can sometimes stop in between poses as well. Maybe it will, and
Yeah.
maybe it won't make it all the way to the pose it was supposed to do.
Oh.
Creepy. Those things creep me right out.
To make it even more creepy, we've been able to take the headpiece off and expose the innards.
We have one that was damaged. It was damaged by a shot from a bullet. And
Oh
it
dear.
has a headpiece that's removable. If you want to take a look inside the head of the seated clockwork in the hole, you will notice in there seems to be something growing that resembles a human brain. Also inside, there are teeth and eyes. There's 2 perfectly formed rows of human teeth inside the clockwork. What would it have need of human teeth for? Yes,
Aye.
a lot of mystery here
Yes.
to this device.
Yeah, I don't know how happy I am to have so many of them on our port now.
Aye. I don't like being near them. Yeah.
They don't always move when you're not watching them, but sometimes they do. All right this way for the final exhibit here today at BoggOdd Oddities Museum.
Please stand in front of the double doors.
And in front of the doors here.
oh,
Whoa.
Oh my god.
Whoa.
There is
The
no
final
god.
exhibit. In front of you stands Hera, the oddity of Itch Meadow Farm. She was born during a hurricane, and it is believed she was born in mid upside down. She is now utterly convinced that she is the right way up, and she cannot be corrected. She does not use her hooves, and instead drags herself along with her horns and wiggles side to side to get around. She is able to see the berries on the underside of bushes that the other animals miss. So maybe this is an adaptation of the species in order to fill a void. Her hooves must be filed down regularly. She does not wear them down naturally, and she produces what her original owners referred to as the wrong way milk, but we here at BoggOdd Oddities refer to it as swill. It is said that by not hanging down into her udders and cooling off, the milk stays hotter for a longer period of time, thereby producing a sweeter, more mature milk with a caramel undertone that is prized over regular milk. You're welcome to take a closer look at her. You're also welcome to try a sample of the swilk that Boggert is preparing for you.
Oh, thank you.
Aye.
Okay.
Ugh. It's kind of silk with a little bittery undertone.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of thick.
I kind of like it.
Yes, we
Whoa.
take special care with our swilk. You gotta clean the milk real good.
Yeah, you have to wash your milk if you're using regular milk. It's kind of dirty. So just make sure you wash it before you consume it.
It looks like he's scratching his own back. He's kind of, wiggling.
Yeah,
Does he-
that's
what does
true.
he think we're
Like he's
drinking?
happy.
Yeah, I think he's having a back day. He's stretching out a little more.
Hmm.
His tail must have amazing muscle tone.
Ah.
Would hold it up all day like that. And also his udders.
Hmm.
Because I'm guessing it's a girl cow, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
It's a
Something
she.
about the udders tells me that. But
Hmm.
yes, they're very toned and perky.
Oh, yes, they are.
Hmm. Yeah, very,
Quite an amazing sight to see.
very interesting flavor as well.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, that concludes our tour here at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. You're welcome to leave us a comment if you like in the desk here before you. You're also welcome to leave a donation if you have any at all, but we don't require any here. We're mainly here to give you the warning, make sure that you tell others to return and have the warnings as well.
Aye. Yeah,
Oh, yes, we will be.
I gave some when I first got in here.
Okay, that's good.
Aye.
I'm just
There's some blank letters in there if
overwhelmed.
you want to fill out a guest review. There's also a guest book if you want to sign it.
I'm just so much information that I didn't know. It's just amazing. You two should be commended for all your hard work.
Oh, thank you so much. So glad you came today.
I'm
Aye,
so
so are
glad.
we.
We've been trying to get here for weeks. Just not
Indeed.
getting our crap together, in the right order and in the right time.
Indeed. Excellent. Excellent tour, I must
Thank you,
say.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
What a great place. We're gonna have to tell lots of people about this.
Aye.
Thank you. There's also flyers outside. If you're welcome to pull a couple of tabs off and give them to your friends.
Aye.
We are going to be closed tomorrow for some unfortunate nightmares, so but we'll reopen on Sunday.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we came today. We nearly were gonna do it tomorrow. Excellent.
Thank you for visiting. Please return soon.
Hi, Elias. Well done. Love it. And congratulations again on Employee of the Month. You're doing a great job.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
Oh,
Aye.
yes.
Did
Thank you
I,
all.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
We'll have to come back.
Safe seas to you all, and beware the shimmers.
Aye.
Oh, for sure. Thank you so
I'll
much.
leave my review with you,
Goodbye.
Elias.
Make all the things and have fun. Have fun during the day and don't die, basically.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Bye.
And safe sails to you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we have our next tour in about 1 hour. Not sooner. We'll see.
Okay.
Did I? Yeah. Of course it's foggy. Foggy.